The object of self-observation is to increase consciousness, because the man becomes conscious of the fact that he is envious and his position is infinitely better than it was before. Why? Because his consciousness has increased. He has become conscious of himself as envious. And this instantly means that he can begin to work on his envy and perceive it acting, whereas before he was unconscious of this factor in himself. The work says that without self-observation no one can shift from where he is. Everyone is at a certain level, and to shift from that level a man must become more conscious of himself through self-observation. A man of small being cannot observe himself because he will not be able to stand it. Now a man who begins to observe something in himself begins to separate from it. Taking yourself for granted as being quite all right means that you are completely identified with yourself. Of course, you are not selfish, of course you do not always want your own way, and so on. But once you begin to observe yourself rightly, you become divided into two. Observing I observes you and feels itself different from you. This is the starting point of this work. I can, for example, observe myself as being envious without knowing it. I took myself envying as myself without realizing for a moment that it was envy. But now I can see myself envying as distinct from my observing I. In short, I have established something in myself that is not my ordinary self. In that case, I can make room for other people in the sense that, seeing and knowing my own envy, I am not criticizing them as I would if I only found fault with them for being envious and judged them without seeing my own envy. Now when you can observe yourself up to a certain point, you attract the influence of the work, which has a great power to change you. This power of the work begins to act on observing I. You must understand, in speaking to people in life who have never observed themselves, one finds after a time certain difficulties because they do not understand what one is talking about. In short, they take themselves for granted and justify everything they do, never observing themselves. They are full of criticism of others, as all people in life are. That is one of the difficulties that face us all in the work. Now the more you have observed in yourself, the less do you judge others, the less you find fault with your neighbor. And this is the beginning of love thy neighbor as thyself, not in any sentimental sense, but in a real way.